Here we go. So this is where the focus is today. We're going to talk about why we commit to ourselves first. We started to touch on that last week. We're going to talk about self-care as a spiritual practice. We're going to talk about the purpose practice results that you guys did at home, also the personal integrity practice and what that looked like. And then, of course, the break, we'll see how that goes. We're going to talk about how we feel about saying no. Do the love in, love out practice. Here comes Tracy. Then we're going to talk about some assignments next week. They're pretty robust, but they're really good. Oh, they're juicy. Looking at our relationship to our bodies and our sexual selves. It's super, super important. And then we're going to start to get into the more fun pieces, and then next week as well. But I want you guys to be able to write an introduction paragraph. Whether or not you're going to online date is not relevant. I think it's useful to sort of drill down who you are, what you're looking for. And I want to give you guys some feedback on that because it's something I'm good at. I'm not good at a lot of things. Well, I'm good at a few things, but I happen to be good at that because essentially it's kind of marketing. So, all right, let's get to it. So let's just begin with this concept about why we commit to ourselves first and meet our own needs. When we take care of ourselves, we create a sense of wholeness in our energy. And so when we're out in the world, we're not attracting from a lack, but rather from fullness. I know a lot of times when I'm talking to people, there is sort of this idea or expectation or belief that when they pull in a partner of some sort, that will make life better. And it should, in a sense. We want someone to add to our experience, but they're not the reason our experience should be good, right? And so and we want to make sure we're not projecting that onto another, or that there's not something sneaky hiding in our creative process that kind of says, if only, because that's a slippery slope that we want to be careful about going down. When we're full, it's easier to stay centered. When we're feeling happy and great about our lives, it's easier to stay in that Zen place and to hear our wisdom, to hear our guidance. And so we can assess, when we're objective, we can assess what's coming at us in a very objective way. Is this good for me? Is this something I want to continue with? What is this telling me about my prospect that's in front of me? And we absolutely want to free others from being responsible for us and rather give them the opportunity to add to our lives. And I think men, and Barry, maybe you can attest to this at some point in the process, but I think men in general have been culturalized to believe they need to be responsible for us, in part from lesson 1 when we were talking about how marriage came to be. And it was really a financial arrangement, families merging together, land, wealth. And even up until birth control started, it was like, God, if the guy can just pay a mortgage, he's in. That's it. We had a real low bar. And I think some of that responsibility pattern it's been hard to extricate because it's been so entrenched in culture and in everything we've been taught. And so as we try to have soulmate type relationships, that stuff is still in the background, and not that, I'm still somewhat old school. I like a guy to reach out at the beginning. I want them to pay for the first meal. I mean, there's certain things, but is that cultural programming? Is that just a comfort level? We want to know someone's invested in us first. But there's a lot of that stuff. I mean, it's real. So the more we free ourselves from that they need to be responsible for me, I think that creates opportunity. And I put this last statement that that's the only option that's available, that we accept nothing less. And what I mean by that is when we are free from believing someone needs to be responsible for, or feeling, it's not a, and not just belief, but feeling, we're not going to accept anything less than someone who will add to our experience. And when I say add, I mean that it's not toxic, it doesn't diminish our life, it doesn't cause us conflict. Not that you may never have a conflict with a partner or an issue, but it doesn't pull you down, it lifts you up. It's the other end of the spectrum and causes you to become your best self. You guys are in agreement with that? And if you're not, I'd like to hear your challenge to that point of view, or even your perspective about, like I shared with you about, I like the guy to pay for the first time. I'll pay the next time, but okay, Claudia, thank you. Yes, okay, well, Claudia agrees. And I guess if you don't agree, that's what I really want to hear, or if you want to work through that. Okay.
Oh, Phyllis.
I think that sucks.
Okay, so hang on, Jackie. Go ahead, Jackie.
I missed what Barry said.
He said that sucks. He's the man, so he's got to pay the.
I agree with the man paying on the first date. But the one thing that it's just like a me thing, like you said, when we pull a partner in, like what about if we, like for me, like I'd rather use the word let a partner flow in, like, because otherwise it sounds like we're going out there, we're grabbing him.
Oh. Okay. I think it's semantics. I think we mean the same thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Because my point of view essentially is that we don't chase, we attract.
Yeah.
So yeah, I call it pulling in, but it's not like an effortful thing, but I think it's just a semantics thing we're having here.
Okay.
Thank you. And Elizabeth says, I mean, what if the guy is saying the same thing in terms of that you should pay first?
No, I'm just, I mean, if you're, take these off so I can hear myself talk. I mean, if your logic is that you're saying for you that valuing yourself means insisting that the man pay on the first date, what if the guy is saying the same thing? Like, what if he's doing his own self-value and is saying,
well, I mean, there's going to be nuance to each situation. So for instance, if I was talking to a man and, or maybe we've gone for a walk or whatever, and we've had a different type of interaction that it's apparent this person is like all in, then the whole money piece kind of disappears. The only time the money piece becomes relevant in my world is that I want someone, I don't want to take care of someone financially, period.
Yeah.
I just don't.
I mean, personally, I agree with you because I don't want to either. Yeah. But I'm just thinking about it. What I was hearing you say is that it's about self-value. It's about valuing
Well, I
yourself.
won't say that it's about self-value. Maybe I misspoke. It's more about, from my own history and my own process, and everyone might be different. That's always a signal to me that someone really wants to step forward, and it's a non-issue. That and I was liken it to actually kind of like my business in a way, that I've often said when people give gift readings, a lot of times that's my least favorite session, because that person hasn't really invested. They haven't sought me out. They haven't made the connection to go, oh, she may have something I want, and I'm all ears. It's more like, oh, this is interesting, I'll give it a try. And so the sessions end up being, not always, but sometimes not as interesting or not as juicy. And every situation doesn't have to be juicy, but it's along that same line of let's have an exchange. And I'm not saying too, Elizabeth, because you're raising a good point, that I wouldn't be open to changing. And it would be different, like let's split or let's play, I'll play next time. But I just kind of want to see how a man reacts to that position. Like if you're like, oh my God, I can't pay my electric bill if I buy you a sandwich. You know, I guess it's some of that, and that's my history playing out because I've chronically been with men that I've always earned more. And I find them being whatever. It's like, ugh. And it's not even about the more, it's how you manage what you have, in my view. And if the guy is feeling that way, then I think it's a worthwhile discussion to have about the roles and see if the person can have that discussion. So why do you want to go halves? What does that mean to you? So it can be really interesting in that regard. But the reason I stated that's from my experience, because we're all going to bring our histories forward, no matter how hard we try not to. Does that kind of make sense? Yeah. Yeah, meeting for coffee is the new date, or in COVID, walking. Jackie, yeah, and Barry, I want to hear what you think about that, being the male energy in the room.
I think that's limiting to a
Say more
certain
about
to a certain extent, because the expectation in life is that we're equal people, and the fact that you demand to be paid for first means there's some shy people out there that you're never going to meet that could very possibly be everything you would want in a mate, but are too shy to ask at this point in their life.
Well, that may be true.
I think the idea that you talk long and hard, or you visit with somebody and find just how much you connect, kind of takes that barrier away, and should take that barrier away, because then you start to know. So paying is an artificial limitation that you shouldn't put out there.
Well,
Then,
I'm only going to challenge you to the point that it is artificial to a point. But at the same time, the idea that we're all equal is also false. In consciousness, we are, but in the human experience, we are definitely not equal. There is nothing equal about how society runs.
well, you say you want.
I have to jump in here for a second. Sorry, I've been raising my hand for like a number of minutes. So yeah, I agree that men should pay the first time because we are still a society far from equal, as Phyllis says. Men still earn about 50% more than women on average. And then there's also the whole gender thing. If I, as a woman, am too proactive and show the man that I can do everything and pay for myself, he feels, oh, well, let her do that. Let's get the fuck and get out of here. And so the whole thing about chasing, of having them make work for it, it's all part of it in my book. Like, for me, it's not, and if somebody is too cheap and I'm a cheap date, to buy me dinner, then hello, you're out of my book. Like, you want to get into my privates and you cannot even buy me dinner? Like, thank you very much. Pay somebody else for the whole job and you'll pay a lot more. Sorry, that's
you can see this is a highly charged issue for all kinds of reasons, because we all bring our experience forward, and you make good points about the gender inequity. I mean, there's race inequity, there's wealth inequity. I mean, it's rampant. And the idea is, yeah, we're striving for equality and we're moving toward that. So Barry, what I say to you is, you're being the man trying to bring the spiritual perspective and what we're aiming for, the ideal. I hear it. And I think, our histories, and especially women, I mean, the way it's been. We come with our own baggage. But I know when I've been out with a man, and I will often say when they pay for me, I'm like, would you like me to chip in? I mean, I will usually offer, because I always approach things sort of friendly, and they'll like, no. I'm always thank you. So I'm super appreciative. It's not like, dude, you better pay for me or else. It's really more of an observation to see how that feels on them. And if they were to say, you know, that'd be nice, or pay the tip, I probably would. And it would be an interesting interaction. So this is one, I don't know that there's a right or a wrong, or that we can come to a point of agreement, or, I mean, but it's something definitely worth thinking about on a lot of levels. And, and the whole point of this process is so much about what works for us and what's going to cause us to feel safe and what's going to cause us to be able to open up. Because the idea that we're just going to be able to go out there and do it, that's the ideal, and that's what we strive for, but it is a challenge. So yeah, wow. And now I'm open to splitting, paying the first time, or receiving the offer of my date to pay. I know I would be attracted to a man that would offer to pay for my meal for reasons stated. I find this a vibe I am attracted to. Yeah, I mean, it's a demonstration of like, yeah, I'm into you, and my pocketbook doesn't mind. And I don't think anybody here is money driven or shallow in that way, but it does translate in a certain way to, you're into me, right? And you're kind of willing to go above and beyond. Wow, this is great.
That being said, I usually pay for the first time.
Oh, of course you do. You're you.
But yeah, but the whole idea is there's times when I just wish somebody would, it's not about paying, it's putting their foot forward just a little bit to open a door. Sometimes I get shy around certain people for whatever reasons, mainly because I see an impressive human being. I get very shy about that. And so anyway, so that would be hard for me to even ask somebody out or go for coffee,
I get it. I get it. And that's so helpful for us to hear and remind us, because I think women, we have been, so much of culture we've been controlled. We haven't I mean, really, until birth control, we didn't really start having any kind of personal freedom, in my point of view. Maybe with suffrage when we started to be able to vote, but there's been so much oppression. I think it just sort of brings us to, am I going to be able to have some power in this situation? It's a moment, but it's not the only thing that matters by any stretch. And I think how you talk about it and being able to have those conversations is important. Yeah, I remember going out with this guy, and we'd gone for a big long walk, and he's like, hey, you want to get something to eat? And I'm like, yeah, I'm starving. Let me head to my car and get my wallet. He goes, oh, no. And it was kind of friendly. And I was like, well, that was super nice. And it's not someone I ever really wanted to see again, but I thought, well, that was really nice of him. So anyhow, keep thinking about it, guys. It's a great thing to process through and decide what it means to you and why, and how you're going to show up moving forward because of it. Let's see, Claudia, even though I am of the same mindset of man paying first date as a show of respect and participation, I'm open to splitting cost of date if the situation feels right. Yes, I would offer to share and assess the response energetically as to level of engagement. So, I mean, in this group, certainly there's an openness. Yeah, there's an openness. So cool. All right, so I'm glad that was a highly charged topic, and that's different than what I hear Phyllis saying. Oh wait, Barry, it sounds like what you were saying, the shy part I knew was around the idea that if it's the woman who asks the man out for a date and pays for it, that should be perfectly fine. and not be a comment on who has power or better organized financial resources. Yeah. So yeah, I love it. I love it when it goes this way. Great. Thank you. Okay. Next, self-care as a spiritual practice. And this is related to putting ourselves first, because a lot of us struggle with that. More women than men, but men too. It's like we give or give, and we define our value sometimes by how much we give. And does that make us a good person? So the difference between selfishness and self-love is that when we love self as a spiritual responsibility rather than a gratification, we show up in life with more power and influence to affect good in the lives of others on the planet. If we show up as me first as a response to external expectations, we're not showing up at all. You know, we're feeding an unconscious belief system based in scarcity. And so when I say as a spiritual responsibility, and those of you who don't align with my spiritual viewpoint, just try it on. Like I say, you don't have to wear it if you don't like it, doesn't feel right. But I think our first responsibility is to the consciousness, creator, intelligence that gave us life, that we have been blessed and gifted with the human experience as an expression. And we need to honor that first and foremost. And yes, we're obligated to one another. I believe that as well. But if we're not full, if we're not whole, if we're not well with ourselves, then we're giving to others in a fragmented way. And whatever our woundedness or whatever our limitations are, we send those with our giving. I mean, same thing like as a parent, doesn't, you know, you're going to pass on to your kids what your limitations are. That's sort of a glaring example. But in life, if we're giving as a means to make ourselves feel good or look good, or because we think we're not a good person if we don't, that's the problem. Make sense? Yes? No? Oh, Janice, hi.
Yeah, I'm reading this sentence next to the last. If we show up as me first as a response to external expectations, we are not showing up at all. Can you elaborate on that a little?
Because me first means that I'm giving because it's for me, that somehow I'm a good person because I just went and gave the homeless shelter $200. I'm a good person. You know? So that's not really giving. I mean, you gave, but it was to make yourself feel better. You know, it wasn't to actually make someone else feel better. Or like, you know, I have a client too, he's Presbyterian and he recently got divorced. And he says, a lot of my people in the church have kind of shunned me because I'm getting divorced and I'm not that person they thought I was, because I'm getting divorced and I'm being judged in a certain way and rejected. And so to me, people who don't live the principles of Christianity or Judaism or whatever it is, it's kind of like, what's that about? You're showing up, you're going through the motions, but not really being that. And so, yeah.
Okay, I'll work with it. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Bobia, I get what you're saying, Elizabeth. The initiator of a date should always be prepared to treat the other. Oh, yeah. Yeah, if I were to ask someone out, yeah, they would be different for sure. And often, like if I ask, you know, even my girlfriends, when I go out with them, it's like, you know, if they make the drive to see me and it's a longer drive or for whatever reason, I'm like, you know what, I'm paying today. You know, maybe next time you'll pay. And it becomes just easy and free flowing. All right, so here we go. The first purpose practice. I know some of you were struggling with this a bit, but I want to hear what happened as you looked at your purpose and what it is now, whether it is an expression through work, whether it is something in the first person, or what it meant to you. And did you take action to align with your purpose in some way and express it? Did anybody do the homework?
I'll share.
Oh, hi, Cheryl.
This was probably the hardest assignment for me. The other stuff I had started working on with my life coach like last year and stuff, but this one I prayed on it, meditated on it, and this is what comes to mind. It's for me, and going way back from when I was younger, from what I can remember to even now, my happiness and joy is about connecting with other people and me feeling some of what happiness that they have. So what I've always done through life is that I love understanding people. I love connecting. I love sharing information with them. I never aspired to be great as in the world of, the great minds. I never aspired for that. I always inspired to love, be surrounded by love, and have deep understanding and a spiritual connection in my life. And no matter how many times I've looked at it and tried to turn it around, that's who I am, and that's what I love. So I don't know if there's more to it. So maybe you can give me some suggestions if I need to look at something else, but that's what I just want to bring to see people happy, but not to the point of the doormat piece, because I've done that. I've been subservient. I did that. Healthy boundaries are so good because the joy that comes first is with me now. And it took a while to recognize and do that. But it also, when you do that, makes the sweetness of the joy that you share even better, because it's not like out of being the martyr or self-sacrifice like that. That's just what I love. But that's all I have. But I wanted to just get out my comfort zone and share.
I mean, it sounds like you're a connector and that you're a healer type. That's my word I use for people who just like to make people feel better. And I think part of this exercise, and that's part of, is there some way you can intentionally align with that in a greater way? And the point really is to cause your light to shine more brightly. So you're kind of like the lighthouse in the ocean, so your partner can magnetize, resonate toward you at a higher level than they are now. So how does that express for you right now? The way, in your daily life, how do you you're a good person, you try and be positive and leave a good footprint? What does that look like for you?
I don't think I understand. I understand what you're saying, but I don't think I understand. Can you rephrase that?
If you're trying to leave a positive footprint and you just want to see people happy, how does that show up in your daily life?
Oh, now
Yeah.
I'm just happy me. The more I see through eyes that comes from me within,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not intentionally trying to always be a light or bright. I just notice that more of that gravitates towards me.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my daily life, the footprint that I leave is just being me. I don't know if that makes sense, but I wake up in the morning.
I guess I would encourage you to play with it. Continue to sit with it over time and see if there is an additional way or another dimension to how you can express that, because you are a sweetheart. You are a total sweet pea, and it's really nice for people to feel that. And sometimes if there's a way to do that intentionally in some form, it elevates us,
Mm.
possibly.
Well, I did reach out, the further next step, I did reach out to some people in San Diego about starting a group.
Oh,
Yeah, so that's kind of in the works. We'll see what happens with that. So I can start practicing on some of my gifts that I keep working on. I have taken the steps for that. And hopefully it'll be the trickle down effect, because I do see as I talk with some, it trickles down to other people and within their family. Not saying that's coming from me, but that's one of the things I'm working on right now. And once a month with some of the people I know in San Diego. But is that part of it?
Bing, 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 bing. That's
Okay,
exactly what we're
yay.
talking about. Like a little celebration thing.
Oh, thank you for helping me like kind of sort that out. Thank you.
Well, and sometimes it can be in the first person. So, I feel like my work is my purpose. Then we also have a personal purpose. Like, my daughter's 18, she's in college, she works, she's got a car, she's got a boyfriend, she's off to, so I only have one kid I'm really got my arms around right now. And so it's given me time to turn my attention to myself. Well, I've always been a musician. And I said, you know what? I'm going to get back into music. So playing my guitar, taking some lessons, and that's bringing me closer to myself.
Oh,
And that's a good thing. I'm reconnecting with parts of who I am that I wasn't able to have time to do in the past. So that's another example of
oh.
activating purpose for yourself. which
I'm doing that
shine.
through yoga too now. So
Thank
that's
you.
another thing I'm very diving into. Oh, okay. Okay, I'm understanding.
I'm
more.
sounding
Thank
like
you,
that guy
Phyllis.
in Groundhog Day. If you watch
Yeah.
that movie, Bing. He's talking
Yeah.
Anyway,
Thank you.
Let's see, what do we have here in the chat? Anel says, my purpose is to experience joy and to inspire and teach by example. When I am connected to my joy, it flows out and attracts joyful connections. Now, I know you're an incredible artist, so could you share how you do that? I just like to hear it. I like to see/hear the words. That you can unmute or type whatever you like.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, I found that so much of my life, it was about trying to figure out how to get people to like me,
Oh,
that, in this last 10 years, I just focused on what brings me joy. And that's taken a lot of practice. And to find joy in washing dishes or find joy in making Valentines. But one of my major focuses is to commune with nature. I feel so much joy in nature. I used to feel guilty about going out and taking photographs. Everybody else is volunteering, doing this, doing that. And then I said to myself, well, if this brings me joy, how could it be bad?
mhm.
So I just really let myself fully engage in that. And I really enjoy sharing what I see in a photo with people, and I do it on Instagram or Facebook, or daily I send a picture or a caption to someone. And so for me, when I'm able to, I find that if I just keep connecting with what would feel good, instead of letting my to-do list run me, I say, what does it feel like I'd like to do on my to-do list today? And it might be something that like, oh, my taxes. Well, it's going to feel good to do my taxes. So I can say, well, I want to feel good, so I'm going to do my taxes today. So I've really tried to incorporate that into everything from cleaning my house to, what do I do next? It's not that I don't have a plan or structure or things I do. I love to facilitate, groups. I love to write. I love to color. So I'm just all about express and movement and play. Most of my friends say, Anel's a great person to play. So and I find that inspires other people for me just to be who I am,
Mhm.
or to be connected to my joy is what I'll say.
Interesting.
I feel like people like feed off your positive energy. Like people want to be around positive people. And the thing
Sometimes.
Sometimes, right. Well, okay, so like this week, I actually had a Zoom date I put on Nextdoor and asked him what apps have they had experience with dating on. And some guy saw it. He's a photographer. And he said, I would like to have a Zoom date. And so last Sunday, we had this, lovely conversation. And truth is, it brought up a lot of my stuff. And I had to process all Monday on like, well, he doesn't like my photography, or I said the wrong thing, or this. But I got to go through it fairly quickly.
Good.
And so I don't know why her question just reminded me of
No,
that.
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And yes, and I think when we think about our own energy and what causes us to be us, it's not only a validation but an admiration, which I think we should have, not in a egocentric way, but an appreciation of what is us, the uniqueness that is us. And that in and of itself can cause us to be more vibrant. And I think it's amazing you did a Zoom date. I'm loving it. Wow, I love it. Oh man, that's juicy.
And if anyone has some recommendations for dating apps, please type them in. I'd love to have them.
Well, we're gonna get there
Okay.
because I have some points of view about that, but anybody else is free to share in the chat for sure.
Thank you.
I love it. You're going after it, girl. I love it.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, that's too exciting. Okay, thank you. Let's see, Elizabeth. I feel so clear about my purpose in life, so clear, and for so long that I actually wonder if it hasn't become a limiting factor. I'm happiest, fully frontline engaged as an advocate for social justice in community with my clients, going up against a power structure that's exploited them and excluding them, using my brains and voice and class privilege to get justice. Well, yeah, I think that is your purpose because you're a badass, and God bless you for being out there. I'm always appreciative that you're doing that work because it takes a special personality and skill, everything, and you are passionate about it. It is your lifeblood. And so for you, all I would ask is, I don't think it's limiting. I think the other side of the coin is perhaps to ensure you are looking at your personal purpose as well. Like I shared about my music, and it doesn't even matter if I ever perform again. That's not it. It's like, I just want to connect to that part of my being. And so making sure you're connected to other parts of your being that cause you to feel like a woman or a person, or bring the world of Elizabeth full circle, to make sure those parts are getting touched. Does that make sense? Deja, I have been happiest when I am creative. I love beauty, so you and Anel should hang out. I would like to explore using creativity as a healing modality. Okay, so text me or get online here. What does that look like? I mean, I know it's just in its infancy, it sounds like, but I'd like to hear a little more about that if you feel like sharing. Anel,
I am not a formally trained artist. I dibble and dabble. I took a 13-month class with a master artist 2 years ago and produced a huge painting over my bed of my life's journey. It's called Codex, and it's encoded with many parts of me and symbols and so forth of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some people who are using art as a healing modality, and I just think that to use something of beauty, not having to be formally trained, but to express oneself can also be a vehicle for healing past traumas and so forth. And I would like to become more involved in that aspect, because that's when I'm the happiest.
That's a good sign. And, I'm a huge proponent of healing when it doesn't require language. That's what I loved about music. You can really evolve yourself without ever saying one damn word. So have you taken any steps this week, or is it just the awareness that that's where you sit and you're kind of pointing yourself in that direction?
The step that I'm taking is I'm clearing a space in my home so that my art supplies can be right there when I need to use them. I also signed up for a course on Daily Om. Daily Om is a website that gives you lessons. You get a lesson every day. So I signed up for an art course
Nice.
to express myself. So I'm clearing a space, I'm making a space, and take out my art supplies and put them in motion. Because I also pulled an angel card about being creative. So everything is pointing me in that direction. And that's when I'm happiest. So
I love it. And you just heard Annelle's testimonial. She's matched, I call it, next door with an artist. So you never know. So this is, I love it. I mean, you're living at large. Great.
thank you.
Elizabeth, yay, Annelle. Cheryl, yay, Zoom. Yeah, that's super exciting. And because I think last week, Annelle, you said, I'm not getting online. It's not happening. And just move through it real quickly. I love that. Okay. Anybody else want to share?
Hi, Phyllis.
Hey, Sonia. Hi.
Hi. Yeah, I touched on it last week about me being a healer, but I realized this week when I dug more into the homework that part of my purpose is also to heal myself.
Yes.
So because in healing myself, I'm also can show up better for patients and others as well. And for the daily practice, like this week, I made myself, because I'm not really a bath person, I'm more of a shower person, but this week I made it a point to take like a couple Epsom salt baths with essential oils and meditated in there.
Oh.
And even though like I had a Zoom date, like Annelle scheduled, I was like, no, how about we push it back an hour, because I just really needed to soak and be with myself.
Nice.
Yeah. And the thing that I'm still struggling on is the kind of when something goes haywire with whoever I'm seeing, is to still stay centered in that peaceful, grounded spot, because it's easily for me to kind of get off track, so to speak. So I was wondering if you have any suggestions.
Well, I don't think it's so much if we get off track, because I think when we're relational with life, which is what we're supposed to be, as opposed to projecting or being focused on outcomes. But when we're just relational, you know, sometimes the energy that comes at us will throw us off. But it's really like, how quickly can I get back on? And do I allow myself to have a process of just connecting with myself? Like, I mean, Annelle, I'm sorry to keep using you, but you're a great example today. But she says essentially overwhelmed, all this stuff came at me after the Zoom date, and I was thinking this and I was thinking that. So a little bit off balance momentarily, but then that just says I need some time to process. I think so many of you achievement type people, it's like, I gotta jump into motion and resolve this. I gotta make it get clear real quick. No, we need to sort of integrate it into our system so we have some true wisdom about how we feel about the moment. And there's nothing fast about that. So I guess for me, for you, I would just say, give yourself the time and don't put pressure on yourself, so that you can just absorb what's happened, you know, and don't beat yourself up because you get thrown off momentarily. I think that's life. If you never get thrown off or you never hit a roadblock, you don't really know, you don't have any frame of reference for where you are and how you feel, you know.
Thanks. Yeah. And then when you're talking about music, I've been thinking about that too. And as soon as I'm done with my COVID vaccination, I'm planning on moving my piano back to my place.
Oh,
Yeah. So I can start playing again.
I love it. I mean, even if you just play for yourself, like me.
Yeah.
You know, I tell people I played the guitar and they go, oh, you play something for, oh, hell no. You know, I might sing something, I'm more confident there, but no way. But yeah, I love that, connecting parts to yourself. And I love that your purpose is really about you, because you've been so much about making everybody else happy.
Thanks.
And by the way, I know Sonia very well, everybody, so I'm not just making this stuff up. So
Thank you.
Anybody else before we move forward? And just reiterating that this is really about admiring who we are, and if we feel we can elevate ourselves in the purpose, like, who am I? What's my role in the world and to myself right now? That does make us shine more brightly and attract, magnetize to us someone who's going to be about what we're about, you know? So very cool. All right, so let's press forward and go into the next. This is super interesting to me, this one, maybe not to you, but we talked about honoring yourself first, and honoring yourself through integrity is important. So yeah, did you guys find little creepy crawlers going on in there in your belief systems about, you know, you make agreements you don't keep? How do you deal with that? Anybody you need to talk to, you've been putting off talking to? Who do I need to contact regarding somebody I owe something to? Who do I need to forgive? Who do I need to apologize to? Who do I need to thank? What lies have I been telling myself? What excuses have I been making? I know that's a lot. But I'm curious if you found any creepy crawlers in there. And they're not creepy crawlers, they're informational centers. And I think we have to be curious about those things. So we know what's in our creative process. You know, one of the lies I used to always tell myself was about, yeah, I should overcompensate for this person. They don't quite know how to do it, but I do, so I'll show them how. I'll make it better for them. And somehow that'll make them love me or be more of what I need. No, that'll never work. But in that lie, it was kind of like, I may not think I'm lovable. That's the bottom line. I may not think I'm lovable. So I need to do all those cartwheels and stuff. And maybe somebody will love me like I am. I mean, that was kind of wrapped up in that whole thing. There's been times when I've needed to say something to someone like, you know, I don't think I want you in my life anymore. And I don't want to have to go through saying that. It's like, oh, I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. I don't want this to happen. Oh my gosh. I think I'm going to avoid that for now. And forgiveness. Sometimes it's like, well, if I forgive them, what does that really mean? Does that mean they get away with it? Or, you know, does that mean, yeah, mainly do they get away with it? And somehow I disempower myself by not going there. So those are the types of things I know that I have cycled through in my own process. I pretty much keep my agreements. And I try to apologize if I know I've done something. Don't always know it. And I try to be thankful. But anyhow, so you guys, Annie up here in chat or
This is Jackie. I have a huge problem with forgiving. I need to forgive someone, and I've been struggling with it. And I definitely think that is a stuck point for me.
Do you feel comfortable sort of sharing some of it with us so we understand?
Not really.
Wow. What was the injury to you? Can you say that? Oh, sweetie pie. Oh man. So the fact that it's still so highly charged kind of shows that there's probably some more healing that needs to happen around the injury for you that they probably can or can't help with. So is that something you're working with, or what's your strategy here? Is there one?
Well, I mean, I've tried meditating on it. I've tried.
That's not gonna work. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
That's not gonna work, but okay, go ahead.
The loving forgiveness meditation, where, you know, whatever it is, I look it up when I need to, but I do think that, like, I hang on to it, and I think that it's holding me back.
I'm sure that it's creating some energy that will push away that which you will make you happy. So for me, in those situations, I would be, I have an article I wrote some time ago that was 7 steps to healing the wounds. You might find that progression helpful. And the final step for me, because I was sexually abused by my father, which is a trip. It's something that's, okay, that happened. Anyhow, I don't need to make light of it, but the ultimate step for me was being able to restore humanity to the person who injured me. And it wasn't like, oh, you injured me and now you have humanity. But, recognize that it's greater than just me. That's what's going on in the situation. And then taking the steps to be with myself. And it takes courage to really unpack all the parts of us that it touches. So it can be done and it's worth doing. But, I'm wondering what you think it says about you that person injured you. And that's what I'd be curious about.
Yeah.
Anyhow, and then just continuing to wrap your arms around yourself as you sift through it. But I have that article is like 3 years old, but I'm gonna look that up for you, and maybe that'll give you some, just paralleling my experience in some way to see how that can help you navigate this course, because that's a biggie, especially when it comes to attracting love. Because what's going to happen is that we're going to end up magnetizing someone to us that's going to push on that point. Not on purpose, but the natural course of relationships is we come together, we're super attracted, we think the person is the shit. Oh my God, this is the match I've been looking for. And then 3 to 4 months in, boom, we hit the wounding with each other. And that's when the problem starts. So yeah, and maybe actually that would be a different way to go about it, that you bring someone in that kind of forces you to look at it. Because if you don't, you won't be able to progress the relationship. It's kind of how it works. But thank you for,
Well,
is there another one?
Thank you for sharing. And I feel terrible that happened to you or to anybody.
Oh, it's okay. Thank you. I'm healed. And that's why I don't mind talking about it. Because it is something that's it's pretty egregious in the grand scheme of life, but I see it in a greater context. And I have been able to restore the humanity of a broken, it's like people get broken and they do stuff. Doesn't mean it's okay, but when you see that they're still a human being, it's helpful and it relieves you of a lot. But thank you.
I'm going to need some private sessions.
Anybody else? Whoa, Phyllis, thank you for sharing. Oh, you're welcome. Of course. I can't ask you guys to bury your souls and me just sit here going, yeah, tell me everything.
Phyllis, it's Janice. I don't type fast enough to get into the chat room. So I just want to point out, because I went through this exercise to some extent with a family member, a very close family member. And I actually forced myself to write a letter and put it in the mail. There is still a post office, and send it to him to express exactly why I was extraordinarily irritated, frustrated, everything else with him, and gave him concrete examples so I didn't seem like I was being superfluous or silly. And I got nothing except thanks. So sometimes you're trying to make amends with somebody who doesn't have the emotional maturity, it seems to me, to be able to take on accountability for their own behavior. And then it doesn't feel to me that there's a whole lot you can do with that. But if I'm missing something, please let me know, because I just don't choose to continue to go down that path with somebody who can't have their own emotional integrity.
I hear you, and nor should you. But I would say that on the topic of forgiveness, forgiveness is different than making amends in a certain way. I think forgiveness is for us. It's not for the other person. It's so that we can free ourselves from the resentment or the pain, or and forgive doesn't mean forget. It means I no longer have any attachment or investment or contribution to this dynamic. I'm free of it.
Or ill will?
Well, yeah, even ill will, because if everything is connected, which everything is, and we project ill will into consciousness, that's like putting toxic waste into the river. It's like we're all going to need that water at some point. And if we pooped in the river, it's kind of like, so it's incumbent. And that's why self-care being a spiritual practice, that's why we need to move towards how can I bring this into greater balance? We may not be able to get it into perfect balance, but to continue to strive toward that and have the intention to do that, I think that's where we need to live. And it's a process, because usually those injuries are not one-dimensional. They're touching many aspects of our wounded person, or whatever the inner narrative is. And that's why I call coaching deconstructing. It's like, okay, let's pull this piece off and let's take that piece down and let's chop that piece. And then eventually we can become clear and begin to rebuild. But, there's no sense trying to, what did they say in that movie Avatar? One of my favorite lines in that, if any of you watched it, you can't fill a cup that's already full. If someone is not receptive, that's their issue. But
Okay.
I think our ability to come into peace with it, that's our work.
Okay.
It's
Thanks.
nice when somebody can say, I'm sorry. Sometimes, did I ever get an I'm sorry? Nope. Hell no. That's okay. I don't need it anymore. I wouldn't even care, quite frankly, whatever. So it's not necessary. It's nice to have. And sometimes it makes it easier, but it's not necessary. And amends, and maybe some of you 12-steppers who are in here, you might have a point of view about amends, since that's one of your steps, and what that does for you. Let's see. Off camera to eat. Oh, okay. Elizabeth is eating. Love that you said, oh, that one. Yeah. And the reason I joked with Jackie about meditation won't work, I mean, it's good to meditate and get an awareness of greater reality. But some of these wounding things, you've got to be in them. You have to be with yourself while you are in them. And if it's too hard by yourself, that's when you need a practitioner or so someone can be with you while you integrate that wound and grieve or whatever needs to happen. And we are human beings, and we have to live this human experience. And thank you, Claudia. I hear you, Jackie. My ego and wounding gets in the way of forgiving. The ability to truly let go is an ongoing theme and lesson in my life. Restoring humanity is an interesting concept. Can you share that? Yes, I will momentarily. Sonia.
Hi. Yeah. So for me, it's easier for me to forgive others, but I have a hard time forgiving myself.
Yep. Classic overgiver syndrome. Healer alert. Oh, you're cold? Let me light myself on fire. Yeah, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. So do you have any advice on forgiving yourself, basically?
Well, when it's been habituated, you have to track it on purpose. It has to be a goal. So, whether it was like weight loss, or I'm going to work on exercising, or I'm going to eat more healthy, we focus on it and we say, okay, today in this 24 hours, this is my plan. And as soon as you notice that you're contracted in some way, you have to sit with it and then kind of rewrite the script about it and get used to doing that. And I would be asking myself why that's so hard to do. I think being curious is so important. It's really like, why am I doing that? what's in that for me? Who do I think I am if I don't forgive myself? I mean, often people are, you know, they think if they're responsible for something, they can either make it better, or that if they, you know, they're telling themselves they're not good enough or something around that, and they need a kick in the pants or something. But I would just be curious about it and make it a goal to track that particular pattern. And I would practice being really kind and loving to myself, which I think you've been doing. I think you've been really working away from that inner critic.
Yeah. Okay.
I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
Yes. So Claudia, regarding restoring the humanity, that was the last step. And that's the last step I wrote in the article. And the 7 steps aren't coming to mind right now because I wrote that article 3 or 4 years ago. But, you know, there is a process of, you know, acknowledging the wound, going into the wound and being able to grieve or whatever needs to happen. And then giving yourself time to integrate and heal from it, and learning how to be, like I'm talking to Sonia, really kind to yourself, and recognizing that it's hard. And you know, the other steps I'm not remembering, but I'm going to look it up since it's coming up. But ultimately, when you get to the humanity, I'm like, well, in the grand scheme of life, like right now, there's 7+ billion people on the planet. There's a vast universe of which I am one set of atoms and molecules that exist. And it's an experience, you know. In 100 years, I won't even be here. It's like, it's just a thing. It's a blip. And how I want to show up around my wounding or my behavior or whatever is to leave a positive footprint. I don't want to contribute to throwing toxicity into the river. So my goal then becomes, well, let me look at this individual who behaved in a certain way, and I can see, oh, well, that person also had trauma in their life. That person also was abused in a certain way. That person also had limiting experience. That person also had egregious things done. And you know, what you don't change or acknowledge is going to come forward. You know, if you don't resolve it, you bring it forward. And so I could see that person, you know, I refer to him as that person. I don't care to refer to him as a father, but that person also had injury. And so once I recognize there's a human being in there, I've restored humanity. Do I want to hang out with that person? Hell no. Do I want to go? No, that doesn't mean I'm going to go have lunch. It just means they're a human being. There is a humanity in there despite the ugliness. So it's not exactly an either or, but when you can have at least that peace, it sort of equalizes, it balances out some other aspects.
Thanks, Phyllis. Yeah, I actually, it's funny because I'm listening to you writing it down and everything, and it's taken me 2 years, well, long lifetime to forgive my mother. And, you know, but this is very similar to the process I've been going through in the last couple of years since she passed. So thank you for sharing that. It really helps to clarify. And I still learned from your process things that, you know, I can still incorporate and get further along, but I'm finally getting to that point where I'm coming out of the wound. And it just, as you know well about me, I get impatient with the process. I'd much rather it was like really just quick and easy and boom, done. So, but it's just, yeah, when the wound is deep, it just takes that long to get through all the layers and you use different techniques. So I appreciate that. Thanks.
Of course, thanks for sharing. And of course, 2 things about when a parent injures you, I think it's human nature. Kids automatically try to make themselves wrong, because if they can keep their parent in high esteem, that somehow will make it better. I mean, so
Yes.
that's kind of the first piece there. And then in terms of impatience, almost 99% of the time, what's under impatience is self-criticism. It's my fault. If I could just have done it better. So.
Ah, okay. Great. Thank you.
Deja, I did a Ho'oponopono for practice for my father this week when I went for a walk in the snow. I have practiced forgiveness towards him throughout my life, and I truly want to be free, so I will do more. I love Ho'oponopono. It's kind of amazing when you do it. Yeah, Joanne's like, yes, Deja. Okay, and now I would like to thank the person who shared they used rocks as a ritual to forgiveness. Yeah, who was that? They really spoke to me. I took a week and made a list of relationships that I still felt resentment, anger, or pain with. Then I painted a stone for each of them with their name. I love that. Yeah, who did that? As I was painting, I reviewed my relationship, both the joy and the pain. I ended up with 24 rocks and had a beautiful ritual of tossing them into the water, forgiving them, forgiving myself, and tossing away all the pain, but holding all the good. God, I love that. Who did that? I can't remember. Jackie, I feel incredibly grateful to have found you. Oh, thank you. How do we, Melody, how do we forgive someone who caused the pain and resentment, who will still forever be in our life to some extent? How many release rituals do we have to exercise? Is there hope for 100% forgiveness? That's a good question, actually. One of my life coaches who took my program is a forgiveness coach. Maybe I'll send you her way because she has a lot more information about that. But you stay with it. And I think we have to be, like I said, curiosity is an important mechanism in healing. That I think we get stuck on the pain as the touch point. But if we become more interested in being curious about why we aren't forgiving and what's under there, and usually what are we telling ourselves about why, about holding on to that pain? Why do we want that? Why does that make sense to us? And keep going inward to why we want to attach to that, why that makes sense. If someone did it to us, like Miguel Ruiz of the Four Agreements, take nothing personally. It's not about us, but somehow our reaction, our relationship to it is that this is my reaction. So I would just stay curious with it. And I think a lot of time the super achievers, of which there's a bunch in this group, have a hard time sitting still and just putting their arms around themselves and loving themselves through the moment, learning how to be there for themselves. They just think either they don't deserve it or it's taking too much time. But to be able to sit with yourself and wrap your arms around yourself while you grieve or be with what it felt like to be mistreated is a big thing. And if you can't get there on your own, that's when you know you need somebody to be there with you. Sometimes it just, me too. Sometimes I have stuff going on, and I have a very dear friend, thank God she's a therapist, but you know, I do a good job getting people in my life who will take good care of me. You know, sometimes I'll just sit with her and say, you know, be here with me while I do this. And that's how it works, right? How many release rituals? Well, I think you do it until, and you know, it's not ongoing where, oh, every day I'm going to sit in pain and grief and try and integrate. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. No, it's like I do as much as I can tolerate now. I move the needle as far as I can move it. And then I stop because I need to just be with the progress I've made to date and then reflect on what remains. And because it can change as we grow it. So we might heal some, and then our point of view about it will shift, and we'll see different elements of our reactivity that are being stimulated as opposed to how it was when we first began the process. And I think there's always hope. And I don't know that 100%, I mean, 100%, that's like an achievement. I've made it. I think when you are, it no longer triggers you, or you don't feel a prisoner of it anymore. And you feel like your well-being is not predicated on that person who injured you. I think you've made it a good distance. Family members, if we're talking about that, they're the hardest because they wrote on the slate of who we are before we had filters. So when we interact with our families, if that's who it is, or then we have to know that when we go into those environments, we may have to prepare ourselves differently, or may have to limit how much interaction we have with those people who haven't been toxic and may still be toxic. The ocean can absorb some amount of toxicity. It can absorb a certain amount of garbage, but when you flood it too much, then we have what we have now. You can't eat the fish, right? So we have to look at our systems the same way when we're, I'm only going to expose myself to so much. And if you're going to expose yourself to more, that would be another question. Elizabeth, I'm doing the rock thing. Yeah, isn't that beautiful? Yeah, true forgiveness is not it's a process. Very good. Good. Well, we should take our break. So let's go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, and thank you guys. And if there's anything else to say on this after the break, we'll do that. So come back at by 11:25. Okay, here we go. All right, hope everybody had a good break. Let's see, Imelda. Oh, Phyllis, this is Melody. I went to grab my book and I opened to this quote: forgiveness. Forgiveness requires strength and the ability to see that its true benefit is for your own happiness. If someone stole from you, holding on to resentment won't bring your things back, but it will keep anger alive in your heart. If you were cheated on or deceived, holding on to anger won't make that person any more honest or undo anything that's been done, but it will keep a place in your heart imprisoned. Allowing past anger to exist in the present will damage or limit new relationships. Forgive yourself for not knowing what you didn't know before you learned it, and I hope this helps. Hi, Imelda. Okay, thank you. I don't know how many of you have the book, but yes, there's a lot of good stuff in there. So saying no creates boundaries that serve as the container for love. And when we are authentic with ourselves by setting our limits, honoring our feelings, prioritizing our own well-being, we identify the path we are on, making it much easier for love to come in. Yeah, so not that we want to lead with no, but knowing what isn't right for us and being able to say no to things does help people see us better. And that's kind of what we want to do. Keep showing who we are so that the ones that truly match with us will come forward. So how do you guys feel about saying no? Just kind of peruse these questions. I find it difficult to say no when I do say no, I feel blank. I prioritize self-care by, I compromise self-care when I. So just kind of look at those questions. I'm not going to send you home with this practice. If you want to do it at home, you can. But I just kind of wanted to take the temperature to see if you feel good about saying no, or you're like, and Cheryl, I'm wondering about you specifically. How do you feel? Cheryl Hassett, how do you feel about saying no? How does that work for you?
I think it depends on who I'm saying no to.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. When it comes to work, sometimes I have a hard time saying no, but I started a new job recently, and a friend of mine told me that, a friend, or maybe I read it in a book, I don't remember, but it was, you have to teach people on how to treat you.
Totally, yes.
Yeah, so I've been working on that, but it definitely has to do with who's asking me. If it's somebody that's open, that won't make me feel, or where I won't allow myself to feel, then it's okay. But if it's somebody else and I know really needs something, I have a hard time, very hard time, and I'll feel, I guess I hate to say it, but I'll feel guilty. Yeah, sometimes.
That's important.
Yeah.
That's important, and that gives you something to work with. I mean, the purpose of someone asking, and I tell my kids this all the time when they say, I asked Maya if she would blah, blah, blah. And well, the purpose of asking is to find out. It's not to get what you want. But people are manipulative. Human beings are manipulative. And so we don't really want to buy into that. And so you're allowed to have your space and you're allowed to say no. And if someone is going to reject or get mad at you, you kind of want to know that, because that is a person you might want to reevaluate their position in your life. Work is a little bit more challenging because our pay is attached to it and our livelihood in a certain way, but still, when we're trying to create high vibration frequency that magnetizes, call it law of attraction, whatever, that magnetizes without our thoughts, it really is about creating the fertile soil. It really is about autonomy and loving ourselves, and who we let in, and who we settle for, and why we settle for that treatment. So I'd continue to remain curious around that.
Okay.
And see if you can, that fear, whenever that fear comes up, well, something bad might happen. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but you want to confront that. You really want to look at that, because who wants to live in fear? Ugh.
True. Or walking on eggshells.
Ugh.
Yeah. No.
Awful. And I know a lot of us probably have at some point in our life.
Oh yeah.
That's not being free.
Mm-hmm.
That is not freedom. That is control.
Yeah.
That's why, and I'm not going to get into a big pandemic thing, but that's why I don't watch I don't like people selling fear at all. I think it doesn't serve us. I mean, if a lion is chasing me down, yes, fear is helpful to get my epinephrine going so I can run like crazy. But other than that, thank you, love. Appreciate
Thank you.
it. Sonia, I have a hard time saying no in general to anyone. I feel guilty. So, same as with Cheryl, Sonia. You got to look at what you're afraid of, what you think it says about you. And when I used to feel guilty, because I used to, believe it or not, I would sit with it and go, where is it? It's usually in the second chakra area. And I would sit with it until I changed it and said, okay, I'm feeling guilty. I don't need to feel guilty. I'm allowed to, and I would work through it until I stopped feeling guilty. And I think that's one of the things with these emotional patterns or thought patterns that have accumulated over time. We think we should just be able to shift. And it requires that we sit with it and on purpose change it. And then once you do that type of an exercise, I'm feeling guilty, no, I'm not. I am not. And sit with it in the second and replace it with, I am responsible to myself. And kind of work with that self-talk and changing the energy. And once you do that a half a dozen times, you'd be really surprised that response pattern changes.
Phyllis, it's Cheryl again. Can I just say a quick thing that I started practicing? Is if somebody asks me something to do, I'm learning, because I know I have a problem saying no. I'll say, like, let me get back to you.
Perfect.
Let me call you later. And then that way, as you were just talking about how we have to sit on it and think about, kind of resolve it. That's exactly what I've been trying to do. So that was really good that you said that, and I appreciate it. But that's what I've been doing. It helps me, for the type that I am, to not immediately say yes and then feel guilty or not, our resentment, not wanting to do it. So then that helps me a lot when I say, well, let me get back to you, or I'll call you a little bit later. And I get to go through that process you were talking about. It's still a new process for me. So I'm working on that though, but I just wanted to share that.
Good, thank you. I appreciate it. Anybody else want to jump in, or? Thanks. Anel, I had to learn to say no less. I think I used it to protect myself and a control issue. I think I learned to say yes more and let me think about it. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of that Jim Carrey movie, The Yes Man. That was so funny. He was always saying no, and then he throughout the movie he learned to say yes, and his life changed in beautiful ways. But I think women in particular, and not to exclude you, Barry, from this, but we're raised to be people pleasers. Mary, I'm grateful that at work I have to say no and negotiate for what I need all the time. I am now good at this in my personal life too. Progress, absolutely. That's super exciting. Okay, here we go. This is gonna get you guys all weirded out. So this is one you're gonna do at home. And it's very important. I mean, all these things are pieces of the puzzle and this is an energy puzzle. We go at it from these emotional questions and things like that, but we're really trying to shift the overall energy of your system so that what you attract really matches the highest ideal level that you want. You don't want the same old, same old. You want something that fits better. So these phrases I got here in purple, those came from the book, the Calling in the One book. I thought they were good. The body. I like this one. Oh, it's in the next screen, but a woman watches her body as though it were an unreliable ally in the battle for love. Woo! Yeah. Anyhow, so here it is. And if you don't have the book, I'll send you the PowerPoint that you're going to take off all your clothes and sit or stand comfortably in front of a mirror with your hands relaxed and resting by your side. You're going to take some deep breaths, relaxing your whole body as your lungs expand and release, expand and release. You're going to do a full body check for any tension you may be holding, beginning at the top of your head down to your feet. Now start with the top of your head. Notice any judgments you have about your hair, the size or shape of your head. And for each judgment, talk to that part of your body that you're judging and take the following 3 steps. Ask that part of the body to please forgive you for being so harsh and unloving. Tell that part of the body something you truly appreciate about it, and then thank the body for something. So example, I hate how frizzy my hair is. Step 1, please forgive me, hair, for telling you over and over how ugly you are. Step 2, I really appreciate how curly you are. I also like your color and texture. Step 3, thank you, hair, for being so full and wild when it rains. And then you want to go through your body doing this process with each judgment you find. And for those parts of the body you have no negative judgments about, just do steps 2 and 3. If you have a particularly critical and fractured relationship to your body, you might want to do a meditation on a regular basis until all the judgments are neutralized and appreciation is restored. You know, I saw this woman on TikTok this morning, just like, you love your body, all of it, whatever it is, you're going to find somebody who loves all of it as well. And yeah, it's important. We want to be able to go out there in the world feeling free, you know, and not hiding or holding back. Let's see, can you tell us what page in the book this is on? I think it's 217. Let me, yeah, it's 218, 217, 218. Okay. Now, I was having fun getting the pictures for this one. This is, I don't know if you guys have watched Bridgerton yet on Netflix. Woo! This dude right here, sorry, Barry, this man, this guy is unbelievably hot. But that whole show, it's like practically soft porn. It's really good though, it's love story stuff. But I was having fun getting the pictures. So now we do want to look at our relationship to our sexual selves, because it can be challenging depending on your history. If you have the book, oh, and I love that, so Woody Allen, whatever, but don't knock masturbation. It's sex with someone I love. I thought that was fantastic. So I just want to, let me see how much time we have on this. I wanted to read part of this for, and especially for those of you who don't have the book, but I'm on 222. And I'm just going to jump into a part of the book. I'm not starting at the beginning, but it says it's not just the most wounded of us who are so divided and disconnected from our sexual centers. Actually, most of us are. Culturally, we hold spirituality and sexuality as being in two entirely different camps. And Catherine says Western religions have done us no favor in splitting the two. We've generally come to perceive spirituality as an upper chakra activity. And when we pray and meditate, we contemplate God from the heart up through the top of our heads, as though he lived in the sky and only we lowly mortals down here on earth. You know, we rarely include our genitals and our bellies in our conversations with God. I think that's amazingly important, because even in my work, I'm always having people bring their energy up behind the sixth chakra. At the other end of the spectrum, our sexuality is generally considered a lower chakra phenomenon, split off from the ethereal energies of the Holy Spirit. Sexual energy is experienced from the heart down. If we are fortunate enough to have our hearts connected to our genitals at all, our wild sexual passions are widely considered to be part of the intricate web of temptation and corrosion. Sex has been called original sin, but there's nothing original about it, nor is it sinful. Yet, for hundreds of years, we've been programmed to think that way. In the past, being spiritual meant that we left the body. At this point in our spiritual evolution, however, we are called to bring the spirit fully into the body, thereby healing the inner divide. In this context, lovemaking is transformed from an activity of the flesh to an activity of the divine. Yet we're not quite caught up yet. We're still segregated and confused within our own bodies. In fact, we are so fragmented and fractured regarding our sexual energies that few of us really trust ourselves when it comes to making good, sound sexual decisions. We don't know our own sensibilities. Is casual okay, or do I wait until he's committed? Should I ask for what we need to know up front? Does this mean we're monogamous? When is the last time you've been tested? How do we feel about each other? Or simply cross fingers and hope for the best? And given that intuition and wisdom come to us through the sixth, the third eye, and the seventh, the crown chakras, and that sexual hunger lives mostly in the root and the second, how do we know where to go within ourselves for the answers to our own questions? It's not just the guys who don't know which part of the body to think with anymore, it's all of us. And most of us harbor at least some small amount of shame for past sexual indiscretions, choices that we wished we'd made differently. And our transgressions stay with us somehow, soiling some secret part of our soul as though something precious and irretrievable has been lost or worse, stolen from us. So we need to forgive ourselves for some lack of judgment we displayed at one time or another. So, assignment 9 at home. You're going to sit comfortably, close your eyes, take a few minutes to connect with your body and your breath. And with each exhale, you're going to breathe out any energies of former lovers or anyone with whom you've had a sexual encounter that you've been holding on to. You're going to release shame, hurt, or anger that you've been holding in your second chakra or genitals and lower belly. If any of you have questions about what the second chakra, I know some of you may not know. If you don't know, we'll talk about where that is and what that means and ways to release if you don't have a way. Continue to breathe this way. With each inhale, reclaim your wholeness and power, retrieving any portions of your heart and or soul that you either gave away or was taken from you. Continue to breathe this away until you feel clear and free in your second chakra, or until you feel ready to proceed. Give yourself as much time as you need. You know, when you're ready, this is the good part. Call the lover of your future into your meditation. Imagine him, her before you. Lovingly offer your body to him, her as a home and sacred resting place. Feel him, her receive this offering as he, she in turn offers his, her body up to you with the same level of love and devotion. Begin to imagine what the touch of your beloved will feel like. Imagine what it feels like for him, her to stroke your hair and your face gently. Feel your beloved kiss your neck, your chest, your belly, your inner thighs. And now allow yourself to touch and kiss your beloved in the same way back. And as you do this, feel the intense love and attraction that exists between you. And notice that you feel very safe with this person, that there is a sense of complete trust and surrender that is both natural and joyful. And when you are ready, open your eyes and write about this sensual, loving relationship from the perspective of how it feels to actually have it. And then the additional practice is to allow yourself to have a sensual day. Dress in sensual clothes, wear a sensual scent, move in sensual ways, eat sensual food, make sensual art, listen to sensual music, write sensual poetry, etc. And all day continue to express and enjoy your sensual energy. And not to go too far down this road, but I think some of you, especially if you haven't been in a relationship for a while, you may be somewhat muted in that regard for, you know, survival mechanism. We want to reactivate that because the physical piece is part of the connection. It's not everything, but I mean, many of us, when we come to that, that's what we're wanting to experience. We're wanting to physically connect as well. And we want to be at peace with that and happy about that. Let me find my chat box. Does everybody know, does it make sense to you when I talk about chakras? Oh, okay, here we go. Thank you. Oh, Melody, forgive me for my late, I know we moved from that slide. I wanted to add that while most of us immediately think of people we say no to, but I was reflecting and thinking how we often say no to opportunities, challenges, or experiences that we immediately feel uncomfortable with. And instead of this immediate no to discomfort or out of comfort zone it is, I'm exercising the same practice as Cheryl to think about it in the process before committing to an answer. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so do you know how to do a grounding cord? Do you know how to ground, Melody?
No.
Oh, okay. I might send you, if anybody wants this, I'll send you from my psychic development. It's not just psychic development, yoga practices. There's all kinds of different ways to ground. But essentially, close your eyes. Do you know the root of your spine? Have you ever heard about the chakras at all? The base of your spine. We imagine in our mind's eye something that we can connect to our body, to the center of the planet, essentially. So I always use a tree trunk. I like oak. I like the idea of a big trunk that I can attach myself to. And I see that merging with the base of my spine. And chakras look like wheels. The word chakra means wheel. So you kind of see how the roots or the pieces of a tree trunk, a waterfall, chains, energy pattern, whatever floats your boat. You connect it to the first chakra and you watch that. You don't go with it. You watch that energy pattern, tree trunk, chains, whatever, lengthen to the center of the planet, going into the bedrock, securing your energetic body, your body to the planet itself. And then you expand the size of that if you can. But I think I'll send this to you because I'm going through it real quickly. And then when you think about releasing, you just, at the beginning of your process, you go all energy releasing, send it to down the chakra, down that first chakra, down the grounding cord. And then at the end of the practice, you will also fill yourself up, your aura, front, back, top, bottom, with beautiful gold energy. You always want to replenish, because when you release, you leave open holes for energy to either come back in or what have you. So I do it down a grounding cord, or absent a grounding cord, you can blow it up just in your mind's eye. TNT is a good thing. Blow it up. Just imagine the image of this thing, blow it up. But it's nice if it has some place to go, or you can always direct it. We forget that we can work with energy. We can talk to it. We can say, go here, go there, do this, do that. So you can say, go somewhere where it will never impact me again, to that place in the universe that takes care of these matters, something like that. So I'll send you that, and that'll probably be helpful, okay? Anybody else? And then in terms, whether it's the first chakra, second chakra, you just tell the energy where it goes, and then you set it on autopilot. I use switches and things, but the spirit, the essence understands these things. My cat is yelling. Yes, anybody who would like that, I'll send that to you. And sometimes to draw a picture of a grounding cord is helpful. It makes it real. But once you practice, grounding can change your life. Grounding is an amazing process, and there's many different ways to ground, many different ways. Now, many different traditions teach different things, but essentially it's kind of all the same. Okay. If you guys would, I see Claudia, Wendy, maybe you could email me, because I may not remember. I will try, because I will send out the PowerPoint as well. But when you learn to ground and secure your space energetically, what doesn't belong to you almost always automatically releases once you ground, because that's what it's there for. And it can change your life. And those energies and those people who are trying to control you, they kind of get kicked out, which is very cool. Oh, I kind of went off on that tangent, but it needed to be said. So yeah, and are you scared of this exercise, or are you looking forward to it? I hope you look forward to it. I think this is an important part. Just like at the very beginning when I opened myself to give and receive love. We did that palms, and we outstretched our arms. It's the beginning of opening ourselves to receive. And this is the same thing. And we want to know where let's just use the word blind spots. We want to know where the energy is. And we may not feel 100%. We're not striving for that. But if we know where our pieces are and we come to a relationship, at least we know and we can communicate that in some kind of sort of way to our person. And we're not getting blindsided as we become activated with a partner. All right, so now here's another assignment. And this is whether you want to online date or not. I don't care if you're going to online date. I want you guys to create your introduction. And people in online profiles have to say who they are, what they want, what they're into. I would like, I happen to be particularly good at this because I'm a marketing person, but I think it's important that you guys know how you're showing up, know what you want to say, begin to have some type of objective point of view about how you're seen in the world and what you're showing people. And you don't have to show me everything, but if you want to, then I think it would be helpful to put that out there and get some feedback on how you're showing up when you put yourself out there. And I know a lot of times from the love class and my clients, people will read their profiles to me and I'm like, who is that? Who is that? Who's that person? That's not the person I know. Who is that? And so it's a good exercise to get used to seeing what you say. And I won't just, maybe other people will say, because some of you guys know each other, some of you don't, but it might be interesting to hear that. Okay. And next week, In addition to looking over the homework, we're going to explore elements that create a happy life more deeply. We're going to challenge fears that prevent love from taking root. We're going to explore communication patterns, focusing on connection. And then we're going to play with these tools and ideas that will attract relational interactions. I mean, and the goal is to be relational. That's why I put that out there. But it's really about, okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to bring in person? How's that going to happen? So we're going to really get into that next week. Now, I need to, where are you? Tracy, I have not heard from you all class. How are you?
I am fine. I have enjoyed listening and taking things in. Things have been clear and I don't have any questions.
Okay, very good. Awesome. Well, I just wanted to make sure. And you know how to unmute, so you'd always jump in there, right? If I haven't called on you.
I do. I absolutely do. And thank you for asking.
Of course. All right. Thank you guys so much for, yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for all your honest sharing and being so open and helping make this a rich and robust experience. Beyond this, you know, down the road when people have this program, they're going to benefit from all the contributions you've made. So thank you. And I hope you have a great weekend, the rest of it. And yeah, just a few more weeks here. It goes quick. Okay. So you guys have a great day and I will see you next week. Yes.
Bye.